Hello everyone and welcome to Mr. Namani Talks. Today we're going to be discussing the differences between to be kind versus to be nice. Looking at this closer, niceness triggers the part of the brain called the striatum. This part of the brain is where our motor skills and reward stimulus are processed. Niceness gives us a dopamine-like response, one of pleasure and happiness. It is perceived as nice when someone gives money to someone else that is in need. But many times these days, people are filming themselves giving this money to those in need, and all the while trying to be noticed and also perceived as a nice person, maybe even one who is kind. However, this is a fake kindness and is an actual front to actual kindness. Through this video, I will do my very best to explain the difference. Though it may be true that the person receiving the money needed it, the way that it was given, though, seems to be more of a self-serving benefit for the one giving it. The correct form of giving out of kindness would be without having to be noticed for it. Kindness comes from the giving of something without one's self ever needing praise or recognition for it. Kindness is a selfless act or gesture because the posture of both the individual's spirit and heart are working as a team for the good of another without being prompted to do so. So kindness is a posture. No, not that kind of posture, but more of this type of posture. The greatest example of all is from the biblical account of Jesus Christ dying on the cross so that we, the sinners of this world, might come to know Him, believe in Him, that we may be saved. The fact that God loves us is that great, and the kindness so unmeasurable that He allowed His only begotten Son to die for us is the truest form and model of kindness. It would be truly hard for any of us, given the same choice, to give up one's child. So one can decide a superficial, maybe a self-serving thought posture of niceness, or one can give selflessly as a pure act of kindness. This choice is always up to you. Another way I like to equate the two differences are with that of children. Let's say two siblings are starting to fight, and the parents tell them to be nice to one another. Now the children, they might not really want to be nice to each other, but they say they're sorry as a way of appeasing their parents and getting on with it. This is also an example of acting in a false manner of niceness. Key word being act. Now let's take an example of true kindness. Say you are an older brother, and you are playing with a toy that your little brother wants to play with. Your demonstration of kindness comes in the form of sharing that toy with him, without being told to do so, but instead because you wanted to. This demonstration is one of the purest forms of kindness that one could be a part of, because it shows the growth of one's true heart posture. You know, as the big brother, that you will get the toy back, but by giving it to your younger brother, he too can find enjoyment in it. And it was the correct and was a kind gesture. Kids are some of the best examples of humanity and a model for even adults to learn from and take a tip from. Adults, being capable of both choices, should weigh on the side of kindness and not as a show of niceness for a self-motivated reason. Lastly, to give a different perspective of both niceness versus kindness, let's say you see a broken down vehicle and it's blocking an intersection, and you decide to drive along with your wife in the car. It's a dark and rainy night, and all you want to do is get home because you had a long and hard day. Now maybe the person in the vehicle is an elderly person, maybe a young girl, or maybe it just doesn't matter who is behind the wheel at that moment. I will say that at that moment you have three choices. The first choice is to think of just yourself and the long day you had, and you just keep on driving by on your way home while telling yourself someone else will help them. This choice is neither nice nor kind, but it is just self-motivated and self-serving. The second choice, and what I would call the nice response, is having to be told by your wife to pull over and help that person out. So you pull over begrudgingly, of course, and help them push their ride to a safe spot out of the intersection. This is done mostly, in part, to make your wife happy, not that you are. Now let's say the person offers a thank you, maybe even some money for your help. You might think to yourself, well, you're owed a thank you. And as for the money, well, you could always use the money. After all, time is money, right? And you just put in that time. So you talk yourself into taking their money. Maybe you are feeling charitable and let them maybe keep their money. But it's a good thing that they said thank you, because you are owed that much, right? The third option is not letting your wife tell you to stop and help. Instead, you see the broken down vehicle and you tell your wife, you know what, I'm going to stop and help that person out. You don't expect a thank you from them or their money, but instead you let your heart lead you to help them. Your reward is just being able to lend the help that the person needed at the time. This is the pay it forward approach, and one of the kindest ways to respond to someone in need. There might have been a time in your life you could remember struggling, and was the one thing that you needed was help. And without asking for it, someone came along and lent that help to you. As if on that day, God knew you just couldn't handle it, and He sent help your way. Well, this was the day you got to pay it forward. So, after helping that person out, they showed you their gesture of gratitude and gave you a thanks. But it wasn't necessary. They might have even tried giving you their money, but your heart just couldn't accept it. Instead, you told them about the times you were the one in need, and someone came along to help you out on that day. That is what your posture and your heart was able to do for them, and that it was your pleasure to help them out and be there for them now. That if that day ever comes to somebody else in need, and they're there to help, just to remember to pay it forward with kindness and not to just to be nice. So the moral of this story is, though niceness might sometimes get the job done, it will never be as rewarding as only true kindness can be. Stay kind, don't just be nice. For someday you might be the one who's down and out, waiting on somebody's kindness to find you. So have a good night, be kind, and thanks for listening to me on Mr. Money Talks.